hook. Have you ever swallowed your anger, kept silent when someone insulted you, and later wondered, was that weakness or was that strength? It's such a common question. In a world that celebrates quick comebacks, strong opinions, and standing your ground, silence can look like surrender. But is it really? Or is there something far deeper hidden inside that moment of restraint? The story. Let me take you into a simple scene. Imagine a crowded marketplace. A man is standing with his basket of fruits when another passerby, rude, impatient, shoves him and spits out harsh words. Everyone around watches, waiting for a fight. But the man does not respond. He simply stands there, takes a slow breath, and continues arranging his fruits. To the crowd, his silence is strange. Some think he's weak. Some think he's afraid. But inside, something remarkable is happening. He has chosen not to let anger control him. He has chosen peace over pride. This is not a story I invented. Versions of this moment happen every day, on the subway, at work, in family arguments. And each time, we face the same choice. Do I let anger dictate my response, or do I hold it, breathe, and choose differently? Philosophical reflection. The Buddha once taught that patience, kshanti in Sanskrit, is not weakness. It is strength. Because think about it, anyone can lash out when they feel attacked. That requires no training, no depth of character. But to remain calm, to stay unmoved, to master yourself in the face of insult, that is extraordinary. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and realizing, the storm is outside, but it doesn't have to be inside me. So the question is not, are you too weak to react? The real question is, are you strong enough to stay still? A deeper look. In the West, we often confuse patience with passivity. We think that if someone doesn't retaliate, they're being walked over. But from a Buddhist perspective, patience is not about letting others do as they please. It's about refusing to let them control your inner state. That rude person in the marketplace? He wanted a reaction. He wanted to dominate the other man's emotions. But the man who stayed calm refused to hand over his peace. That is power, an invisible kind of power. Think about your own life. How many times have you lost your peace because of someone else's words? How many sleepless nights have been wasted replaying arguments in your head? What if the real strength was not in winning the argument, but in protecting your peace? Modern example. I once knew a woman, let's call her Sarah. She worked in an office where her boss was constantly belittling her in front of colleagues. Many people told her, stand up for yourself. Fight back. But she chose a different path. She did her work with calm consistency, refused to be dragged into emotional fights, and quietly looked for a better opportunity. Within months, she found a new position in a healthier environment, and her old team realized how much value they had lost when she left. Her patience wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It was wisdom. She protected her energy, kept her dignity, and in the end, walked away stronger. Personal reflection. I'll be honest with you, there have been times in my own life when I reacted too quickly, snapped back when I felt attacked, only to regret it later. That burst of anger gave me temporary satisfaction but left lasting damage in relationships. Over time, I began to notice. The moments I stayed silent, the times I chose not to respond, those were the moments I felt most at peace. And strangely, those were the moments when people respected me more, not less. It's almost as if patience carries a quiet authority, a dignity that doesn't need to shout. The wisdom of patience. Buddhist teachings describe patience as one of the paramitas, the perfections that guide us toward liberation. Why? Because patience is the bridge between suffering and peace. Without it, we are tossed around by every insult, every delay, every inconvenience. With it, we begin to walk with freedom. Imagine your patience like a hidden treasure chest. Every time you choose not to explode, every time you breathe instead of fight, you're adding gold coins of peace into that chest. No one else can see it. No one else can steal it. But it grows, silently, within you. A question for the viewer. So let me ask you, the last time you held back from reacting, how did it feel? Did you feel weak, or did you feel a quiet strength rising inside? And if you did feel weak, what if that was only the world's definition of weakness, not yours? Closing insight. Patience is not about losing battles. It's about winning the greatest war, the war within ourselves. Because when we control our reactions, we are no longer puppets of anger, ego, or pride. We are free. And that freedom, my friend, is priceless. Transition to next episode. So remember this: patience is not surrender. Patience is mastery. It is the invisible treasure that keeps you steady when the world tries to shake you. But patience is just the beginning. In the next part of this series, we'll explore how patience acts like a shield, protecting your heart and mind from unnecessary pain. Because while anger burns and destroys, patience cools and preserves. Stay with me. The journey into this invisible treasure has only just begun. Patience, the shield that protects the heart. They say one angry word can destroy a relationship, but sometimes one moment of patience can save it. Have you ever felt that? That instant when you're standing on the edge of an argument, ready to throw out words you know you'll regret later. And then, something inside you tells you to stop, to breathe, to wait? That pause, that single heartbeat of restraint, can change everything. Story: 2 friends at the edge of breakup. Let me tell you a simple story. 2 close friends had known each other for years. They shared meals, laughter, even secrets. But one afternoon, a small misunderstanding flared into a heated argument. Voices grew louder, tempers rose, and one of them blurted out something hurtful, something that cut deep. In that moment, the other friend had 2 choices. He could lash out and throw words like knives, or he could hold his tongue. He chose silence. He chose patience. He let the storm pass. Later, when anger had cooled, the 2 friends sat down and talked it through calmly. Their friendship survived. In fact, it grew stronger because one of them had chosen not to let anger dictate the outcome. Now imagine if he hadn't been patient. Imagine the words that would have been exchanged, the trust broken, the distance created. A single reaction could have ended years of companionship. Philosophical reflection. This is why patience is often described in Buddhist teachings as a shield. Not a shield made of steel or wood, but one made of inner calm. Anger throws spears at us, harsh words, misunderstandings, insults, but patience blocks them. It keeps them from piercing our heart and causing lasting damage. Think about it. Words spoken in anger are like arrows released from a bow. Once they're out, you can't take them back. They keep flying, wounding not only others but also yourself. How many times have you regretted something you said in the heat of the moment? How many times have you wished you could rewind, erase, and start over? Patience gives us that chance. It doesn't erase the moment, but it prevents damage before it begins. The power of silence. Many people believe that silence in an argument means weakness, that if you don't defend yourself immediately, you're being defeated. But silence, when it comes from patience, is not surrender. It's strategy. It's strength. Because silence is not empty. Silence is full of awareness. In silence, we can see more clearly. What am I feeling right now? Where will my words lead? Do I really want to turn this small fire into a forest fire? Sometimes, silence is not about losing the fight. It's about protecting what's truly valuable: the relationship, the trust, the peace of mind. Everyday example. Let me bring this closer to everyday life. Maybe you've had a tough day at work, and when you come home, your partner says something careless. Instantly, you feel that spark of irritation. You want to snap back, to release all the frustration you've been carrying. But if you pause, if you breathe and choose patience instead of reaction, the evening can go one of 2 ways. With anger, the night may turn into a battlefield. With patience, it may turn into understanding, maybe even a quiet laugh about the stress of the day. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about what's worth protecting. And often, the heart of another person is worth far more than the satisfaction of being right. Karmic perspective, the weight of words. From a Buddhist perspective, words are powerful because they carry karma. Words born from anger create suffering, not only for the person who hears them but also for the one who speaks them. This is what's called verbal karma. Every insult, every harsh word we release, is like planting seeds that will grow into future pain. Patience is the shield that prevents us from sowing those seeds. By holding back, by choosing not to respond with anger, we protect not just our relationships but also our future selves. When you think of it this way, patience isn't just saving the friendship in front of you. It's saving the peace of your own heart, now and in the future. A personal insight. I can share from my own life. I once had a friend I deeply valued, but during a stressful time, we clashed. I felt misunderstood, even betrayed. My instinct was to cut him off, to say something final and sharp. But I didn't. I waited. It wasn't easy. My pride wanted to fight back. But after some time, he reached out, apologized, and we healed. Looking back, I realized that if I had followed my anger, I would have lost a lifelong friend. That one moment of patience preserved something priceless. Patience is not easy, but its rewards are profound. A question for you. So let me ask you, can you remember a time when patience saved you? Maybe it saved a relationship, or your job, or simply your own peace of mind. And can you also remember a time when impatience destroyed something valuable? Which memory weighs heavier on your heart? These are not just abstract teachings. They're lessons carved into our everyday lives. The shield of patience in action. If we think of patience as a shield, then we must also ask, how do we hold it? How do we strengthen it? Every time you stop yourself from reacting immediately, you are lifting that shield. Every time you breathe before speaking, you are making it stronger. Every time you choose understanding over ego, you are protecting not just yourself, but the people you love. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Just like a warrior who trains with a shield until it feels like an extension of his own arm, patience can become a natural part of how we live. Closing insight. So remember this. Anger may feel powerful in the moment, but its power is destructive. Patience may feel quiet, even invisible, but its power is protective, healing, and enduring. One angry word can destroy a relationship. One patient moment can save it. Which one will you choose the next time you stand at that crossroads? Transition to next episode. Patience doesn't just protect relationships, it also opens the door to wisdom. Because when the storm of anger is quiet, the mind can see clearly. In our next part, we'll explore exactly that. How patience is not just a shield, but also a teacher, a measure of true wisdom. Stay with me, because the treasure of patience is only beginning to reveal itself. Patience, the measure of true wisdom. They say intelligence can solve problems, but wisdom knows which problems are worth solving. And here's the truth. A clever person may not always be patient, but a patient person is always wise. Think about that for a moment. Isn't it strange that we often admire brilliance, sharp thinking, quick wit, yet the ones who truly stand tall in life are those who can remain calm when insulted, steady when provoked, and clear-minded when chaos erupts? So let's dive into this. Why is patience not just a virtue, but actually the measure of true wisdom? The Zen master's story. There's a story told in Zen tradition about a monk who had become well known for his serenity. One day, a man approached him, furious about something he thought the monk had done. In front of a crowd, this man shouted insults, called him names, accused him of dishonorable acts. Everyone expected the monk to defend himself, to explain, to fight back. But the monk stood still. He didn't flinch. He didn't respond. His face was calm, his eyes steady, like a quiet lake untouched by the wind. When the man finally stormed away, the monk simply smiled and said, "If someone gives you a gift, and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The crowd understood. The insults had been like gifts of poison. By not accepting them, the monk left the anger with the one who carried it. His patience was not weakness, it was wisdom, clarity, freedom. Reflection, the link between patience and wisdom. That story reveals something powerful. True wisdom isn't about knowing 1,000 clever answers. It's about knowing when not to answer at all. Wisdom is not a quick comeback. It's the quiet strength to let an insult dissolve without disturbing your peace. Because here's the thing, when the mind is clouded by anger, clarity disappears. You may have the sharpest intellect in the room, but if your heart is burning with rage, your intelligence becomes useless. It's like trying to see the stars through a sky filled with smoke. But when patience enters, the smoke clears. The mind becomes open, spacious. That's when wisdom shines. Everyday example. Let's bring this closer to home. Maybe you've had a boss or a coworker who spoke to you unfairly, harshly. Instinctively, you wanted to snap back, to defend your dignity. But if you had reacted, what would have happened? Maybe more tension, maybe damaged trust, maybe even a lost job. Now imagine instead you took a breath. You listened. You waited until the storm inside you passed. Later, when your emotions had settled, you responded calmly, maybe even kindly. What happens then? Often, the other person realizes their mistake. Sometimes, respect grows instead of conflict. This isn't about letting people walk over you. It's about choosing your moment, choosing your words, choosing wisdom over impulse. A question to ponder. Here's something to reflect on. Have you ever won an argument only to feel like you lost something bigger? Maybe a friendship, maybe peace of mind? And on the other hand, have you ever stayed quiet, held back, and later felt grateful you did? That's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence wins the argument. Wisdom wins the heart. Philosophical angle. Philosophers across cultures have echoed this idea. The Stoics in ancient Rome said, if you are disturbed by something, it's not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment about it. Buddhism says something very similar. The mind is like a mirror. If it is calm, it reflects reality clearly. If it is disturbed by anger, fear, or ego, the reflection is distorted. Patience is the practice of keeping that mirror clear. It is the doorway to seeing reality as it is, not as our emotions twist it to be. And in that clarity, wisdom appears. Personal insight. I'll be honest, I haven't always been patient. There were times when I reacted too fast, said something sharp, made a choice out of pride. And yes, sometimes I won the moment, but lost something far more meaningful afterward. But as I've grown older, I've realized the most powerful people I've met are not the loudest, not the quickest, not even the smartest. They are the ones who carry themselves with stillness, who don't get thrown off balance easily, who respond from a place of understanding instead of impulse. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means seeing clearly, waiting for the right time, and then acting with wisdom instead of ego. A deeper layer, patience as awareness. So here's the real secret. Patience is not just about holding back. It's about awareness. It's about being awake to what is happening inside you. When someone insults you, the untrained mind reacts instantly. Anger rises, words come out, and regret follows. But a patient mind notices the anger, acknowledges it, and chooses not to be ruled by it. That's why patience is a measure of wisdom, because it shows you're not asleep inside your own emotions. You're awake. You're free. Practical application. How do we practice this? How do we grow patience in daily life? Start with small moments. When you're stuck in traffic, instead of cursing, breathe. Notice the frustration and let it go. When someone interrupts you, pause before speaking. Ask yourself, do I want to react or do I want to respond? When criticism comes, instead of fighting it immediately, listen. Sometimes hidden inside criticism is a truth that can help us grow. Each of these small acts is like lifting weights for your patience. Day by day, the muscle grows stronger. Closing thought. So let's return to our opening line. A clever person may not always be patient, but a patient person is always wise. Why? Because patience shows mastery over the self. It shows that the mind is not enslaved by anger, by pride, by ego. Patience is wisdom in action, because it transforms conflict into understanding and chaos into clarity. When you practice patience, you are not just enduring. You are waking up. You are protecting your peace. You are living with wisdom. Transition to next episode. So let me leave you with this. Patience is not just restraint, it is awareness. It is mindfulness in action. But here's the next question. How do we nurture this awareness? How do we cultivate patience so that it becomes second nature, not just something we struggle to find in rare moments? That's what we'll explore in the next part, the practices that help us water the seed of patience in our daily lives. Stay tuned, because the invisible treasure of patience is only beginning to unfold. Patience, the training of inner strength. We often admire the size of a person's muscles, their physical strength, their ability to dominate in sports or battle. But here's a question. Do muscles really define strength? I'd argue no. If you want to know the true strength of a person, don't look at how much weight they can lift. Look at how much anger they can hold without exploding. That, my friends, is the measure of inner strength. Story, the fighter and the sage. There's a story I once heard about two young men. One was a martial artist, famous for his skill and feared for his temper. The other was a student of meditation, quiet, almost unnoticed. One day, the martial artist mocked the meditator. What's the use of sitting still with your eyes closed? Come fight me if you're strong. The meditator simply smiled. You can defeat 10 men in a fight, he said softly. But I have learned to defeat the anger within me. Tell me, who is stronger? The fighter had no answer. This story draws a clear line. Training the body can help you overcome others. But training the mind, that's what helps you overcome yourself. Reflection. Strength redefined. In our culture, strength is often portrayed as dominance. Who's louder, who's tougher, who's on top. But think about it. Have you ever seen someone who looks powerful on the outside completely lose control when provoked? It doesn't matter how fit or successful they are. When anger rules them, they're powerless. Because true power is not in conquering others. It's in mastering yourself. That's why patience is not weakness. Patience is inner strength. It's the quiet, invisible muscle that doesn't show up on the outside but reveals itself in the hardest of moments. Everyday example. Let me bring this down to something simple. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One pounds the steering wheel, yells at the cars, honks endlessly. The other takes a breath, accepts the delay, maybe turns on some music, maybe reflects quietly. Who's stronger in that moment? The first person is at war with the world. The second person is at peace with it. That peace, that ability to stay calm when circumstances don't bend to your will, that's inner strength. Why inner strength matters more. Here's why this matters. Physical strength fades. No matter how fit you are today, time will eventually soften your muscles. But inner strength, the power to remain steady, to endure, to respond wisely, only grows stronger with practice. It's the kind of strength that doesn't just serve you in a fight. It serves you in your marriage, your friendships, your career, your health, your whole life. Because life will throw punches at you. Illness, loss, betrayal, disappointment. You can't dodge them all. But you can train your mind to withstand them. That is the essence of patience. A question for you. So let me ask you, when was the last time you felt proud of yourself for not reacting? When you held back an angry word, or you chose silence instead of escalation, didn't that moment feel stronger than any victory over another person? And yet, how often do we overlook those victories? How often do we dismiss patience as doing nothing, when in reality, it's the hardest thing of all? Analogy. The warrior within. Think of patience as training the warrior within. The warrior of the mind doesn't fight enemies outside. He fights the enemies inside. Anger, pride, fear, greed. When you train physically, you sweat, you ache, you push your limits. But when you train in patience, you face an even tougher challenge. You confront your own impulses, your own ego. That's why patience feels so hard. Because the battle is invisible, but the stakes are enormous. Win outside, and you may have a trophy. Win inside, and you have freedom. Personal angle. I'll share something personal. In my younger years, I thought being quick with words, sharp in arguments, made me strong. I could win debates, shut people down. But afterward, I often felt empty. Relationships were strained, my heart restless. It took time, and honestly, some painful mistakes, for me to see real strength wasn't in speaking faster or hitting harder. It was in pausing, breathing, letting my ego step aside. And when I practiced that, when I trained my inner patience, I found something surprising. People respected me more, not less. My relationships grew deeper. My peace became harder to shake. That's when I realized patience isn't just endurance. It's empowerment. Philosophical insight. The Buddha once said, "Greater in battle than the man who would conquer 1,000 men is he who conquers just one, himself." This wisdom echoes across cultures. In the Bhagavad Gita, self-mastery is described as the highest victory. The Stoics of ancient Greece said a man who cannot control his anger is no different from a slave. Over and over, the lesson is the same. The strongest fortress is the mind that can withstand its own storms. Practical ways to train inner strength. So how do we train this inner strength? How do we build the muscle of patience? Pause before reacting. Count to 5. Breathe. That tiny space is where freedom begins. Reframe the situation. Ask, is this worth losing my peace over? Will this matter tomorrow, next week, or next year? Accept imperfection. People will fail you. Circumstances will frustrate you. See it as part of life, not an attack on you personally. Practice daily. Just like lifting weights, inner strength grows by repetition. Each moment of patience is a rep for the soul. So next time someone asks you about strength, remember this. Muscles may impress, words may intimidate, positions may dominate, but none of these compare to the power of self-mastery. Patience is inner strength. It is the discipline that turns reaction into reflection, conflict into understanding, chaos into calm. But here's a challenge. What happens when your patience is misunderstood? When people take your calmness as weakness, when they think you're easy to push around, that's the question we'll dive into in the next part. Because patience is not about being a doormat. It's about something far deeper. Stay with me. We are just getting to the heart of this treasure. Patience is not weakness. Hook. People often say, if you stay silent, if you tolerate insults or injustice, it just means you're weak. You're a coward. But is that really true? Or could it be that patience is not weakness at all, but a deeper kind of strength? Story: the Buddha and the insults. There's a famous story about the Buddha. One day, while he was teaching, a man came forward and began insulting him. The man called him names, ridiculed his teachings, mocked his followers. Everyone waited for the Buddha to respond. Would he argue back? Would he defend himself? But the Buddha simply sat there, calm and unshaken. When the man finally stopped, the Buddha asked him a simple question. If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who does the gift belong to? The man replied, well, it would still belong to the one who offered it. The Buddha smiled gently. Exactly. In the same way, when you bring me your anger, your insults, but I do not accept them, they remain yours. No anger, no retaliation, no war of words. Just clarity. Reflection. What patience really is. Now, many people look at that kind of patience and think, that's weakness. You let someone disrespect you, and you did nothing. But let's pause for a moment. Who had the power in that situation? The man yelling, red in the face, controlled by his anger? Or the Buddha, who remained calm, unshaken, and free? The truth is, patience doesn't mean you accept injustice blindly. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. Patience means you choose your response wisely. It's strength under control. Analogy: the sword. Think of patience like a sword in its sheath. A sword that is always swinging wildly is dangerous and reckless. But a sword that remains sheathed until the right moment, that is discipline, that is mastery. Patience doesn't mean you don't have power. It means you don't waste it on meaningless battles. Modern example. Let's bring this closer to everyday life. Imagine you're at work. A colleague criticizes you harshly in front of everyone. Your ego burns. Your instinct is to snap back, to defend yourself. But you take a breath, you wait. Later, in private, you respond with calm clarity. To the outside world, it might have looked like you backed down. But in reality, you chose the smarter battleground. You protected your dignity without creating unnecessary chaos. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Question to the audience. So let me ask you, how many times in your life have you mistaken patience for weakness? And how many times have you later realized that the one who remained silent, calm, and composed actually held the most power? Personal reflection. I'll be honest with you. In my younger years, I hated the idea of being patient. I thought it meant letting people disrespect me, letting myself be less than. But with time, and with some painful mistakes, I learned that reacting out of anger usually made things worse. My victory in the heat of the moment often left me with regret afterward. It was only when I learned to pause, to choose silence sometimes, that I began to see patience wasn't weakness. It was my way of refusing to be controlled by someone else's actions. Because think about it, when you explode in anger, who's really in control? Not you. The other person. They push a button, and you react. That's not freedom. That's slavery. Patience is freedom. Philosophical insight. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That echoes the Buddha's wisdom. Life will bring insults, criticism, even injustice. But how you meet it, that's your choice. And when you choose patience, you're not bowing down. You're standing taller than the anger itself. Deeper understanding. Patience versus injustice. Now, let's make something clear. Patience is not about tolerating abuse forever. It's not about staying silent in the face of real harm. There's a difference between patience and passivity. Patience means you don't let anger dictate your response. But it doesn't mean you never respond. It means you respond with clarity, with strength, and at the right time. If someone wrongs you, you don't need to react instantly. You can wait. You can gather your strength, your wisdom, and then take action that truly addresses the situation, not just feeds your ego. That is why patience is not weakness. It's strategy. Analogy: The fire. Think of anger like a fire. If you pour gasoline on it, your instant reaction, it burns hotter and faster. But if you simply let it be, without feeding it, the fire dies down. Patience is refusing to pour gasoline on every spark. It's choosing when and how you want to use your fire. Everyday example, relationships. In relationships, this is everything. Imagine if every disagreement with your partner turned into a shouting match. There'd be no peace, no growth. But when one person practices patience, not silence from fear, but patience from love, the relationship deepens. Because patience creates space for understanding. That doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means facing them without losing yourself in anger. Personal angle. I remember a time I was badly criticized by someone close to me. My instinct was to fight back, to defend every word. But I chose silence. Not because I agreed, but because I realized they were speaking from pain. Later, when the storm calmed, we talked. If I had reacted in anger, that relationship might have been broken. But patience saved it. That's when I learned, patience is not weakness. It's the courage to let the storm pass before you speak. Practical steps. Building this kind of patience. So how do we cultivate this strength? Pause before reacting. When provoked, don't answer immediately. Give yourself space. Ask yourself, what's my goal? Do I want peace, or just to win the argument? See the bigger picture. Will this matter a year from now? If not, maybe it's not worth losing your peace over. Respond, don't react. When the time is right, address the issue, but from a place of calm strength, not anger. So the next time someone tells you that patience is weakness, remember this. Patience is not losing. Patience is not bowing down. Patience is choosing not to let someone else control your emotions. Patience is strength with wisdom, power with direction. It's not about suffering silently. It's about mastering yourself so that when you do act, you act from clarity, not chaos. Patience is not defeat. It is victory over yourself. But here's the question we'll explore next. Is patience only about enduring? Or is there something beyond endurance? Something even greater waiting for us? Stay with me, because the journey doesn't end here. Patience, the maturity of the soul. Hook. Have you ever noticed how children react when they don't get what they want? They cry. They scream. They demand the world to bend to their will right now. But a mature adult? They pause. They think. They choose their response carefully. That difference, between instant reaction and thoughtful response, is the mark of growth. And that is where patience becomes not weakness, not just endurance, but the true sign of maturity of the soul. Opening reflection. Let's be honest, all of us carry a little child inside. That part of us that wants what it wants immediately. That part that gets angry at the slow driver, frustrated when the Wi-Fi lags, hurt when someone doesn't agree with us. But life, with all its unpredictability, is a constant invitation to grow beyond that child. To stop reacting like we are ruled by impulse and start responding with wisdom. Patience is the bridge. Analogy, storm and sky. Think of patience like the sky above a storm. The storm may rage, lightning, thunder, wind. That's our emotions, our impulses. But above the storm, the sky remains calm, wide, unshaken. When we learn patience, we learn to live in the sky, not in the storm. That's maturity. Story, everyday example. I'll give you a simple example. A friend of mine once told me about an incident at a grocery store. He was waiting in line, and the cashier was moving painfully slow. The man in front of him started complaining, rolling his eyes, making everyone uncomfortable. My friend, instead of joining in, simply waited. Later, he learned that the cashier was new, nervous, and afraid of making mistakes. Now here's the question: who showed maturity? The man who demanded the world move at his pace, or the one who saw the bigger picture and chose patience? Patience reveals maturity not because it makes us passive, but because it shows we can see beyond our immediate frustration. Philosophical angle. The philosopher Seneca once said, "How much better it is to heal than to seek revenge from injury." That wisdom rests on patience, because only patience gives us enough space to see that rushing, shouting, or retaliating rarely solves anything. Maturity is measured not by how quickly we get angry, but by how calmly we can stay centered in the face of what bothers us. Contrast, child versus adult reactions. Think about it. A child wants candy, and if you say no, they cry. An adult wants respect, and if they don't get it, they lash out, gossip, or fight back. Both are the same reaction, impulse-driven, emotionally charged. But when you've grown in soul and spirit, you realize, not every battle is worth fighting. Not every delay is an insult. Not every disagreement is an attack. Patience is what transforms those raw emotions into wisdom. Personal reflection. I'll be honest with you, there were times in my life when I thought patience meant weakness. If I didn't argue back, I felt like I was losing. If I stayed quiet, I thought others would take advantage. But over the years, I learned something powerful. Every time I reacted from emotion, I usually made the situation worse. I might have won the argument, but I lost peace. I lost dignity. I lost time. When I started practicing patience, truly letting myself pause, breathe, and wait, I found that my responses became sharper, clearer, wiser. Patience didn't silence my strength. It refined it. Analogy: wine and wisdom. Think of it like wine. Grapes are sweet, yes, but immature. It's only through time, through patience, that they transform into wine, richer, deeper, more complex. In the same way, our soul matures not through instant reactions, but through the patience to let wisdom ferment within us. Spiritual insight. In many spiritual traditions, patience is considered not just a virtue, but a doorway to enlightenment. In Christianity, patience is part of the fruits of the Spirit. In Buddhism, patience, KNTI, is one of the perfections that lead to liberation. In Stoicism, patience is resilience, the ability to endure what we cannot control. Different traditions, same truth. Impatience belongs to the child, patience belongs to the mature soul. Practical everyday scenarios. So let's bring this closer to home. Where do we practice this kind of maturity? At work. When deadlines are tight and tensions rise, patience helps us respond with clarity instead of panic. In relationships. When disagreements happen, patience allows love to remain, even in conflict. With ourselves. Growth takes time. Healing takes time. Patience with our own journey is the highest form of self-love. Because maturity isn't just how we treat others, it's also how gently we treat ourselves when we stumble. Audience reflection. So I want to ask you, where in your life right now are you being invited to grow in patience? Is it with someone close to you who tests your temper? Is it with circumstances you can't control? Or maybe, is it with yourself, learning to forgive your own pace, your own mistakes? Remember, every test of patience is a lesson in maturity. Deeper thought, patience and wisdom. Here's something I realized. Patience is not about waiting. Anyone can wait. True patience is about how you wait. Do you wait with bitterness, complaining every second? Or do you wait with calm, with understanding, with a heart that sees beyond the immediate? That how is what defines maturity of the soul. Analogy: the seed. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. You water it, you give it sunlight, you wait. If you dig it up every day to check if it's growing, you kill it. Our soul is the same. It matures only through patience, through the ability to hold space for growth that takes time. Personal story. I remember struggling once with a project that wasn't moving as fast as I wanted. I pushed harder, I rushed decisions, I forced outcomes. In the end, it collapsed under the weight of my impatience. Years later, when I learned to slow down, to trust timing, to work steadily instead of desperately, that's when success came. Patience wasn't delaying my growth. It was preparing me for it. Closing reflection. So here's the truth. Patience is not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about becoming someone who is no longer ruled by emotion alone. Someone whose soul has matured enough to act with wisdom. Patience is the sign that you've moved beyond the child who demands everything now, and into the adult who understands that life has its seasons, and wisdom takes time. Patience nurtures a soul that is steady, thoughtful, deep. But let me leave you with one final question. If patience shows maturity, does that mean patience has no limits? Or are there moments when patience must end, and action must begin? That's what we'll explore next. Patience. Where are the limits? Hook. People often say, be patient, endure, let it go. But here's the truth. Patience does not mean tolerating everything. It does not mean closing your eyes to what's wrong. And it definitely doesn't mean allowing others to walk over you. So, where's the line? Where does patience end and action begin? Opening reflection. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas about patience. Some people think patience equals passivity. That if you're patient, you'll just swallow every insult, accept every injustice, and keep quiet no matter what. But that's not patience, that's surrender. That's giving away your dignity. True patience is strength under control. It's calmness in the storm. But when patience crosses into enabling harm, it's no longer a virtue. It becomes a trap. Analogy: a dam and a river. Imagine patience as a dam holding back a river. The water is your emotion, your power. A strong dam doesn't let the water spill recklessly, but it also knows when to release the flow through gates to protect the land and keep balance. If you hold everything back forever, the dam will crack and collapse. If you release everything without control, you flood the valley. That balance, that's the wisdom of patience with limits. Story: the Buddha's silence and his voice. There's a famous story of the Buddha. Once, a man came to insult him, shouting harsh words, hoping to provoke anger. The Buddha stayed silent, calm, unshaken. That was patience, choosing not to let another person's anger control his pace. But in another story, when injustice or harm threatened his community, the Buddha spoke firmly, clearly, without hatred, but also without fear. He was patient, yes, but not silent when silence would cause harm. This is the lesson. Patience is not about never speaking, it's about how and why you speak. Philosophical angle. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But here's the deeper layer. Sometimes the wisest reaction is not silence. Sometimes it is to act, to defend, to protect, but without letting anger be the driver. The real art of patience is learning to act from wisdom, not from rage. Everyday example. Think about this in your own life. Let's say someone at work keeps taking credit for your ideas. Patience doesn't mean you let them keep doing it until you're invisible. Patience here means, instead of exploding in anger, you calmly document your work, bring it up to the right people, and address it directly. You defend your dignity without letting fury take over. See the difference? The immature reaction is rage. The unhealthy patience is silence. The mature patience is wisdom, calm, clear, firm. Personal reflection. I've struggled with this myself. For a long time, I confused patience with avoidance. I thought, if I say nothing, maybe the problem will go away. But problems rarely disappear by themselves. They grow. They feed on our silence. The turning point came when I realized patience is not avoiding conflict. It's choosing the right timing, tone, and intention. It's the ability to act without hatred, to speak without venom, to stand firm without losing peace. Analogy: the lion. Think of a lion. The lion doesn't roar at every sound in the jungle. It doesn't chase every little animal that crosses its path. It conserves energy, stays calm, and moves only when necessary. But when the time comes, the lion acts with power and precision. That's patience with wisdom. Strength, not weakness. Spiritual insight. Many spiritual traditions echo this truth. In Christianity, patience is praised, but so is speaking truth and standing for justice. Jesus himself was patient with insults, but he overturned the tables of money changers when corruption invaded sacred space. In Buddhism, patience is a perfection, but never an excuse to enable harm. Compassion sometimes requires firm action. In Islam, patience, sabr, is paired with justice, enduring hardship while standing for what is right. Across traditions, the lesson is clear. Patience must walk hand in hand with wisdom and courage. Audience reflection. So let me ask you, where in your life have you confused patience with silence? Is there a relationship where you keep tolerating disrespect in the name of keeping peace? Is there a situation at work or in your community where you've stayed quiet, even though your heart knows you should speak? Or maybe, are you too quick to react, thinking patience means weakness, when in fact patience could make your actions stronger? These are the questions only you can answer. Practical guidance. Where are the limits? So how do we know where the limits of patience are? Here are 3 guiding lights. Patience is right when silence protects peace. Like when someone tries to provoke you, but you refuse to hand them control over your emotions. Patience is wrong when silence enables harm. Like staying quiet while someone is being mistreated, or while injustice grows unchecked. True patience is active, not passive. It waits, observes, prepares, and then responds wisely, not from fear, but from clarity. Personal story: speaking up with calm. I once worked with someone who constantly criticized me in front of others. At first, I told myself, be patient, don't react. But deep down, I knew my silence wasn't patience, it was fear. Eventually, I gathered my calm, waited for the right moment, and spoke to him privately. I didn't accuse or attack. I simply expressed how his actions affected me and asked for respect. Surprisingly, he listened. Things changed. That day, I learned. Patience gave me the space to act without rage, but wisdom told me when to stop being silent. Closing reflection. So, patience is not about letting everything slide. It's not about ignoring injustice. It's not about staying quiet at the cost of your dignity. Patience is strength under control. Wisdom in action. The balance between silence and voice, between endurance and courage. But here's the next big question. If patience must be guided by wisdom, then how do we actually develop that wisdom? Because patience without wisdom is weakness, but patience with wisdom is power. That's what we'll explore in the next episode. Learning to cultivate blessings. Hook. Have you ever met someone who just seems lucky? Opportunities come their way, people want to help them, life seems to flow with a certain ease. And then, maybe you've met others who, no matter how hard they try, always feel blocked, struggling, stuck, or drained. What makes the difference? It's not luck. It's something deeper. In many wisdom traditions, it's called blessings, or what some might call merit. Opening reflection. In our fast-paced world, the word blessing can feel outdated, something people only whisper in prayers or say after a sneeze. But if we pause for a moment, blessings are very real. Blessings are like invisible seeds we plant through our thoughts, words, and actions. Over time, those seeds grow into the conditions of our lives. And here's the good news: blessings are not random. They can be cultivated, just like a garden. The Buddha's teaching. There's a beautiful teaching from the Buddha that says, a person with wisdom and virtue will always be followed by blessings, just as a shadow follows the body. Think about that image for a second. Your shadow never leaves you. It's always there, quietly walking with you, whether you notice it or not. Blessings work the same way. When you live with kindness, integrity, and wisdom, blessings naturally accompany you, silently, steadily, like your own shadow. 3 practices for cultivating blessings. So, how do we actually cultivate these blessings in daily life? It can be summed up in 3 practices. Keeping a kind heart. Learning to share. Nurturing wisdom. Let's explore each one. Keeping a kind heart. It all begins with the heart. Our thoughts create ripples that shape our lives. When we hold anger, envy, or resentment, it clouds our mind and poisons our relationships. But when we keep a kind heart, wishing well for others, forgiving quickly, and practicing compassion, we generate a field of energy that others can feel. Have you noticed how some people walk into a room and immediately bring warmth? They don't have to say much, you just feel safe around them. That's the power of a kind heart. It's not weakness, it's strength, because it takes courage to stay kind in a world that often rewards hardness. Example, a simple smile. Think of something as small as a smile to a stranger. You may never know what impact that smile had. Maybe that person was having the worst day of their life, and your kindness became the one thread keeping them together. That invisible ripple, that's a blessing you've just planted. Learning to share. The second practice is learning to share. Now, sharing isn't only about money. It can be time, attention, encouragement, or even just listening. In a world where so many people feel unseen, your presence can be the greatest gift. When you share, you're saying, I see you. I value you. You matter. And here's the paradox. The more you give, the more abundant you feel. Story: the loaf of bread. There's an old story about a poor family with only one loaf of bread left. They chose to share it with a hungry traveler who came to their door. The next morning, they woke up to find their pantry mysteriously filled. Now, maybe you don't believe in miracles, but the story holds a truth. Generosity multiplies. Whether through gratitude, goodwill, or opportunities, what you give somehow finds its way back to you. Nurturing wisdom. The third practice is nurturing wisdom, because kindness and generosity without wisdom can sometimes lead us astray. Wisdom helps us discern what is truly helpful and what only looks helpful on the surface. For example, if someone you love is struggling with addiction, Kindness alone might say, keep giving them money. But wisdom recognizes that true compassion sometimes means setting boundaries. Wisdom grows through reflection, learning, and practice. It's the ability to see beyond the surface, to understand causes and consequences. And when kindness, generosity, and wisdom come together, blessings overflow. Personal reflection. I've seen this in my own life. There were times when I chased success, thinking blessings would come through achievement alone. But often, that path left me empty. It was only when I slowed down, when I chose to help someone without expecting anything back, when I forgave someone who hurt me, when I studied not just to earn but to grow, that life began to flow differently. Opportunities showed up. Friendships deepened. Peace returned. That's when I understood, blessings are not about luck. They're about alignment, aligning your life with kindness, generosity, and wisdom. Audience reflection. So let me ask you, where in your life can you keep your heart softer? What could you share today, not because you have extra, but because you have love? And what wisdom have your struggles already taught you that you can now live by? Because every choice you make today is planting the blessings of tomorrow. Closing story, the shadow that never leaves. Remember the Buddha's words, a person with wisdom and virtue is always followed by blessings, like a shadow that never leaves. You don't have to chase blessings. You don't have to beg for luck. You simply need to live in a way that naturally generates them. Kindness, sharing, wisdom, simple but powerful. But here's the deeper question. Once we've learned to cultivate blessings, how do we use them wisely? How do we avoid wasting them on endless desire, and instead channel them into true freedom? That's what we'll explore in the next part of this journey. The sweet fruit of patience. Hook. There's an old saying, those who lose their temper sow storms, but those who practice patience reap peace. Think about that for a moment. How many storms in life, conflicts, broken relationships, regrets, come from a single moment of anger? And how many moments of peace, respect, and even unexpected blessings are born from a single act of patience? Opening reflection. Patience is one of those virtues we often admire in others but struggle to practice ourselves. It's not glamorous. It doesn't look powerful. In fact, in today's fast-paced culture, patience can even feel old-fashioned, almost weak. But patience is not weakness. It is inner strength. It's the invisible hand that steadies us when everything around us shakes. And more than that, patience always bears fruit. Sweet fruit. Story, the man who stayed calm. There's a story that has been told in many forms. A man once found himself in a heated situation. Someone insulted him harshly, trying to provoke a fight. People gathered, waiting for the man to explode. But instead of reacting, he took a deep breath, smiled, and walked away. Later that night, the other man who tried to provoke him got into a fight with someone else, and ended up in serious trouble. By choosing patience, by refusing to be pulled into anger, the first man avoided disaster. He didn't just keep his dignity, he kept his freedom. Lesson. That story shows us something powerful. Patience can protect us from harm we don't even see yet. When anger rises, it blinds us. We see only the moment, not the consequences. But patience gives us a wider vision. It lets us see beyond the heat of the moment, into the future that anger would destroy. The philosophy of patience. Buddhist teachings often describe patience as a seed. When you plant it, you may not see results right away. But over time, it grows into peace, respect, and blessings. Impatience is also a seed, but its fruit is bitterness. So the real question is, which seeds are we planting, moment by moment? Modern reflection. We live in a culture of urgency. Fast food, fast answers, fast success. We want everything now. But think of the things that truly last. Friendship, trust, love, wisdom. None of these can be rushed. They require patience. A tree doesn't bear fruit the day after you plant it. It takes seasons of care. Why do we expect our lives to be any different? Example, workplace patience. Consider the workplace. Have you ever had a boss or colleague who lost their temper easily? Most people around them don't feel respect, they feel fear. Now think of a leader who remains calm under pressure, who listens before speaking, who can absorb tension and respond thoughtfully. Which one do you admire more? Which one would you follow? Patience doesn't just bring peace, it earns respect. And respect is a kind of invisible blessing that lasts far longer than fear. Personal reflection. I'll be honest, I used to think patience was just about waiting, sitting still, letting time pass. But over the years, I realized patience is not passive. It's active strength. It's choosing to respond instead of react. It's giving space for wisdom to appear before you speak. It's training your heart to breathe even when your mind is on fire. Some of the best decisions I've ever made came because I paused, because I allowed patience to guide me. Deeper wisdom. There's also something mystical about patience. When you practice it, it feels like you're losing something. You're losing the chance to defend yourself, to shout back, to prove your point. But strangely, patience always gives more than it takes. You lose the moment of anger, but you gain a lifetime of respect. You lose the temporary satisfaction of shouting, but you gain the deeper peace of self-mastery. And sometimes, as in the story earlier, you even avoid dangers you never knew were coming. Audience reflection. Let me ask you this. When was the last time your patience saved you from regret? Can you remember a time when anger only made things worse? And what if, in your next conflict, instead of rushing to react, you took a deep breath and let patience speak for you? What might change? The sweet fruit. Here's the truth. Every act of patience plants a seed. In time, those seeds blossom into blessings, peace of mind, stronger relationships, respect from others, and even opportunities that anger would have destroyed. This is why patience has been called a hidden treasure. You don't always see it right away. Others might not even notice it. But quietly, invisibly, it shapes your destiny. Closing. Lead in to next episode. So yes, the hot-tempered person sows storms. But the patient one gathers peace, dignity, and blessings that last. Patience is never wasted. It is always rewarded. But here's the deeper mystery. If patience brings so many rewards, why is it still called an invisible treasure? What makes it hidden, even though its fruits are so sweet? That's what we'll uncover in the next chapter of this journey. Patience, the invisible treasure. Hook. You may not see it right away, but patience is one of the greatest treasures you can carry through life. Not a treasure of gold or silver, not something you can hold in your hand, but a hidden wealth that quietly nourishes peace, wisdom, and happiness for a lifetime. Opening reflection. Think about it. Most of the problems we face in life, broken relationships, unnecessary conflicts, even personal regrets, are born out of a lack of patience. One harsh word spoken in anger, one hasty decision made without thought, one refusal to wait, and suddenly, a storm is unleashed. And yet, patience has the power to protect us from that storm. It's like an invisible shield, soft but strong, unseen but deeply felt. The nature of invisible wealth. When we talk about wealth, we often think of what can be counted: money, property, success, achievements. But there are other kinds of wealth, subtle, hidden, yet far more powerful. Patience is one of them. You can't measure it on paper, you can't deposit it in a bank, but it saves relationships, it builds trust, and it creates peace. Isn't that a kind of wealth worth more than gold? Story: the family saved by patience. Let me share a story. A father came home from work, exhausted and stressed. His young son accidentally spilled a glass of water all over his papers. For a moment, the father's anger flared. He wanted to shout. But then, he paused. He remembered, this is my child. The papers can dry, but the words I speak now could leave a scar. He took a deep breath. Instead of yelling, he simply cleaned up the mess with his son, turning it into a small lesson. Years later, that boy, now grown, remembered that moment. He said, I learned what love looks like in patience. That father may not have realized it then, but in that pause, he saved more than just peace for the night. He protected the bond with his son for a lifetime. Lesson from the story. This is what makes patience a treasure. It doesn't always show its value immediately, but in the long run, it protects what matters most: our relationships, our happiness, our own peace of mind. Philosophical insight. Buddhist wisdom teaches that patience protects us from bad karma, nurtures wisdom, and creates blessings. Why? Because every time we practice patience, we interrupt the chain of anger and suffering. Instead of passing our pain on to others, we stop it with compassion. In that moment, we are not only protecting ourselves, we are also protecting the people around us. Modern example. Think about traffic. We've all been cut off by another driver. That flash of anger rises, your heart beats faster, your hands grip the wheel tighter. Now, you have two choices. You can honk, yell, maybe even chase the other driver, and let your day spiral into stress. Or, you can breathe, let it go, and continue your journey in peace. Which choice truly makes you richer? Which choice leaves you freer? Personal reflection. When I was younger, I thought patience was weakness. That if someone insulted me, I had to strike back. If life was slow, I had to force it to move faster. But time has taught me something different. Patience isn't weakness, it's wisdom in disguise. It doesn't mean you're powerless. It means you are powerful enough not to be ruled by anger. It means you trust that the right moment, the right outcome, will come without destroying your peace along the way. The fruits of patience. So, what fruits does patience bear? Let's gather them. It protects us from bad karma. We don't multiply anger with anger. It nurtures wisdom. By waiting, we see more clearly. It creates blessings. People respect and trust those who are calm. It preserves happiness. Families, friendships, communities, all grow stronger when patience is present. Isn't this the kind of treasure worth carrying? Audience reflection. Now I want to ask you, how many times has impatience cost you peace? And how many times has a single moment of patience saved you from regret? If you think back, you'll probably find that the sweetest moments of your life were born not from rushing, but from waiting, from holding back, from choosing calm. Deeper wisdom. Here's the paradox. Patience often feels invisible. Nobody gives you an award for not losing your temper. The world doesn't applaud you for waiting quietly. But patience is like air. You only notice its absence when it's gone. And when it is present, everything breathes easier. That's why I call it an invisible treasure. It may not shine like gold, but it quietly shapes the quality of your entire life. Closing thought. So the truth is this: patience is not just about waiting. It is about protecting peace, nurturing wisdom, and creating blessings that ripple far beyond what we can see. Patience is the invisible treasure within your heart, always there, always available, waiting to be chosen. Lead in to next episode. And here's the beautiful part: patience doesn't just stand alone. It is closely connected to another jewel of the spirit: compassion. If patience is the treasure that guards our peace, then compassion is the light that guides us through the darkness. In the next episode, we'll explore compassion, the lamp that shines in the night.